2 weeks from today will be Election Day. So each day we've been offering another psalm in preparation for that day. Not that people aren't voting already. This is voting season. I hope everybody's voting. But in our tradition, we offer a psalm. We offer psalms for healing of the sick. And we have been offering psalms for lift, for clarity, for truth, as we approach this time in our nation for healing.
We started to do this the day after the first debate.
Yes, we did.
It was so discouraging.
Right.
That we started the next morning.
Yeah.
And for lift,
yeah,
Rabbi Talvi says for the lift, we called it Tilim on the ceiling.
We do.
For lift. Also, something else, I don't know if I told you this, but another piece came from another piece after Psalm 16 several days ago, and somebody in our community passed, and we were reading, and I made another piece that was insight from doing the Psalm 16.
Yeah.
And so it began to grow, the teachings began to grow a branch. So I'd like to, we'll do it another time.
This is the longest psalm.
This is a long psalm.
This psalm is really long.
So, Rabbi Talvi, let me make the prayer.
Make the prayer. That'd be great.
V'harev na Adonai Eloheinu et divrei toratcha b'finu u'v'fi amcha beit Yisrael v'nihiyeh anachnu v'tze'etzaei amcha beit Yisrael kulanu yudei shemecha v'lomdei toratecha Baruch atah Adonai amelamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. O God, make the words of your teaching pleasant on our lips and the lips of all those who come into our circle, so we can spend a time in learning for the pure pleasure of it.
Yes.
Blessed are you, and for its implications in our lives, for the works of our hands. Blessed are you who teach us to your people in this fashion. Amen.
Amen. I like looking for signs. This is Psalm Chai, Psalm 18. It's a really long psalm. It kind of does what we've kind of been saying these psalms don't do. They're not predictable. This psalm is pretty predictable, wouldn't you say?
Well, it comes to a certain part that lengthens the vituperativeness. So
yeah.
We can move through that part.
Yeah, because, it's...
There's a long catalog of anger.
Yeah, right, of retribution. And I think it might be a wonderful warning, actually.
Yeah.
We just started the new moon of Cheshvan as well.
People talk about a pandemic fatigue, and part of that is the anger.
And the blaming.
That we have attached to it.
Yeah.
So
right.
So hard. So it's in this psalm for sure. But, we can scoot through that part.
I think it's also good to remember that most scholars agree that the original, the older version of this psalm appears in 2 Samuel 22.
Yeah.
It's
also,
a
shira.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see it. You can actually see the way it's written. It looks like the Michamocha,
poetic form called shira.
Mm-hmm. It is a poem or a song. Can you see it?
You can see just the structure.
That's how it looks in
structure
Samuel.
We call this shira.
Yeah. And again, it's pretty predictable. You're my rock. You saved me. Those guys were really bad, and they're going to get their due. Because in the last psalm, it asked the question,
Yeah. Is it going to be just?
Yeah. Will there be justice? Will there be justice for those who have made it so difficult, who have tortured us, who have caused the suffering? And you know, there's a lot of talk about the value of suffering that I have a hard time with.
Yeah.
You know, suffering that you know makes the, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, makes us tougher.
Yeah.
Makes us stronger.
Yeah.
Brings out the power, but you know,
we don't want to linger on that.
No, and there's a lot of that here, but there's also retribution, and you know, the truth is, if we spend time on that, we will be distracted from the work, the real work that we are going to need to do, and that is the work of healing and undoing a lot of the mess.
It's enough to get over the anger.
Yeah. So maybe we'll just read
to channel the anger
a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? Just a little bit of this psalm, the beginning maybe and the end, and skip all the terrible things that are going to happen to the bad guys, because that's just doesn't need to be the focus, right?
Right on.
You know, they'll get their due. Eventually it happens, but that's not our focus, right?
Yeah.
So let's begin with Psalm 18. Maybe I'll do the English, and you can. Do you want to do it from Samuel? Maybe?
No, but I was just looking at it for a second.
Yeah, I think
it's in the next chapter, I believe, where they call him the last words of David, and they call him the sweet singer of Israel. In the next chapter, I love
just
that.
Just before he dies, right?
Yeah.
It's just before he gives his last prophecy.
Yeah.
And you know, so much of the Psalms draw upon the story of David when he was a kid and had to find his way to be safe from Saul.
Right.
You know, who
here it is.
Who wasn't always a bad guy. He wasn't really a bad guy, but he was a bad guy to David. And so we have to look at why. You know, what were those reasons?
Uni'im Zmirov Yisrael, sang the sweet, the pleasing composer of the songs of Israel. I love that. Ruach Adonai Nebebi.
So
the Spirit of God spoke through me. This is so beautiful.
It really is beautiful. It is beautiful. So if you're interested in this psalm, it would be good to go to 2 Samuel chapter 22. You can see it there. Lemenatzeach. You know, this is the one who grants victory. Le'eved Adonai, LeDavid, to the servant of God, to David. I mean, that's also so important. You want to be a good leader? Be a servant. I have to say this. Our friend Miri in Jerusalem says that there is a huge rainbow because it's evening there. A huge rainbow after a thunderstorm with a beautiful sunset. And, you know, it's Parshat Noach this week, right? Right, Miri? It's the portion of Noah before we become Jews, right? When we are just humankind. And we need that rainbow. We need that sign that everybody, every hue is going to find their place in this story, and make it beautiful. Thanks, Mary from Jerusalem. To the one who grants victory by the servant of David, who spoke to God, you know, the words of this song in the day that God delivered him from the hand of all the enemies and from the power of Saul. For David said, I love you with a childlike love, O God. You are my strength. I love you. I just love you. You don't have to prove anything to me. God, my rock, my fortress, my deliverer, my God, my rock in whom I put my trust, my rock in whom I put my trust, my shield and my horn of salvation. You are my high tower. You know, you connect the heavens and the earth. You make it possible for me. Right? As proclaimed in the songs in praise of his acts, I will call upon God and obtain help against my enemies. Remember when the cords of death compassed me and the floods of base men alarmed me. There's that reference to the flood. The cords of the grave surrounded me and the snares of death were prepared for me. Right? We've felt that, haven't we? Felt that. We're feeling that with this pandemic that is spiking again. In distress such as this, I call upon my strength. I call upon God.
Batsar
And
liyakra
I will cry to
Hashem.
you, God, like Hagar did, right? And you will hear my voice, like you heard the voice of the groaning of the slaves and
Yishma
drew you into the
v'hechalo
story,
koli.
because we need something bigger than ourselves
From
here
the
to tie
palace.
us together. From the abode of God's power, and my cry before you.
Shabati lefanav
My
tavo
cries, these cries will
be'oznav.
reach your ears. Whenever the earth shook and quaked and the foundations of the mountains trembled, they were shaken because you were angry. You know, not as a punishment. Remember that we don't talk about punishment from God. We talk about consequences.
Ki
You know, we're going to do
charalo.
fracking. The earth is going to tremble, right? We're going to do terrible things to the water. We're going to get sick. Westlake is in the news again. Let's pay attention, St. Louis, to what's happening from, you know, the uranium from 1944. It's still poisoning us. It's still killing our children. Smoke rises up from God's wrath, and fire devours out of God's mouth. You know, the fires in at Westlake. Don't forget that. Coals flamed forth from God. God dipped the heavens and came down, bringing the heavens and the earth closer, and clouds of darkness were under God's feet. Angry at what we've been doing. The cherubim who sped hither bore God and drew God nigh quickly with the wings of the wind, almost like the chariot of Ezekiel, right, Jim? God makes darkness a veil, and immediate surroundings will be God's disguise. Darkness of waters, thick clouds of the sky. But some brightness remains in his clouds that have passed into hail and coals of fire. And there's your rainbow. There's your rainbow, Mary, maybe. For it was God who thundered in the heavens. It was the Most High who let the voice be heard in hailstorms and coals of fire, sending out arrows and scattering them, shooting forth lightning. Seems as if it was sent without a plan, you know, as consequences for our actions. So we have to pay attention to what's happening, right? If we want the vision of that better world, right? If we want to put forth that vision of the way we want things to be. So we're going to start talking about the rewards for the good and the punishment for the bad. And I think we should kind of skip to the end, don't you think?
Okay.
Because, let's go to Lamed Bet, you know, 32, where it says,
okay. Kimi Eloah mi baladi. For who is the divine power?
Right. Who is forming the rock
Adonai Litzur Zulati Eloheinu.
So have some trust that we will be girded with bravery, that our ways will be straight, that our feet will let us stand in high places, that our hands will be trained to do the right thing here.
Hey, Sean.
And right at the end, let's go to the end, okay? Let's skip all these punishments, don't you think?
Yeah.
All right, so right at the very end, remember, God lives. You know, we talk a lot about God in these Psalms. But I want to remind us that also we have been talking about not the transcendent God, not that God out there, but this inner Shekhinah, you know, this indwelling of godliness that we find when there is equity. It says it again and again, right? Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid. We find God when there is equity, when there is equality. I put God before me with that word shiviti, which comes from shaveh, which means on the same plane, even God right here, immanent, not transcendent, immanent with us. The last verse, the one that increases the victories, right? That shows mercy to David and his seed forevermore. Ad olam. So,
okay, this is what I did.
Let's hear what Jim's interpretation of the song
I
is.
took this as an Ars Poetica. It occurred to me this was an Ars Poetica, like when you write poetry, when you write about writing poetry.
Yeah.
That's what this seemed like to me. So that's what I call this one. Psalm 18, Ars Poetica. I've been everywhere. I feel the hand working. Servant of God, David.
Mm.
This song, as if I've been delivered, saved. On this day, I love you simple. My strength, salvation for a refugee. Squeezed by all around me. A storm breaking on the earth, God dipped the heavens and came down. Then springs of water, breath and spirit sent to save me from the great waters. Saved, delivered, enemies strong, not that strong. Brought into a wide open space, set me free. I have kept the ways of God. Don't turn away. Payback.
Yeah.
As if I deserved to be pious. Not so pious.
Mm-hmm.
I keep principles. You give light to the lamp. The way is perfect. I'm in training. Therefore, I'll gain. Therefore, I will sing about it. October 20th, 2020, 14 days counting. Teelim on the ceiling.
Beautiful. So with 2 weeks to go, 2 weeks from today, another Tuesday, we offer this Psalm 18 in the new moon of the month of Cheshvan. After all of those beautiful holidays in Tishrei, we are delivered to Cheshvan. The rabbis sometimes call Mar Cheshvan, the bitter month of Cheshvan, because she only has Shabbat and the new moon and the moon. So it's up to us to lift up whatever it is we can.
Aleinu.
To take the ordinary,
Yeah, baby.
whatever it is, whether it's a cup of tea, a conversation with a friend, lift up the ordinary and see the extraordinary in it whenever you can in this month of Cheshvan, and maybe it will deliver us to a holier place. So tomorrow morning we will be back with Psalm 19. Hope everyone has a day of lift, a better day, a day where, like our friends in Jerusalem, look up to the sky, and after the rains, we'll see that rainbow reminding us that everyone has infinite worth, that all the hues, right, all the colors, all the differences come together in a beautiful rainbow that makes us whole. Have a great day, everyone. A day of lift.
Peace.